So today we're continuing the top 5 methods for catching common sunfishes. We're going to talk about 3 lure types that are very effective for catching big long ear, bluegill, red ear, greens, and many other lepimids. My recommendations are ones that I've thoroughly tested, some I've even used for almost 3 decades. And I'll share one lure that I feel every angler should have in their box for common sunfishes. What's up everyone, Koaw here of KNFS, where we anglers are always learning, sharing knowledge about fishing and fishes. So we've already covered the weighted jig heads with soft plastics for catching common sunfishes, and we've done the drop shot. So let's talk about some other sweet lure types that I love using for going after the big common sunfishes that if you haven't been using, maybe I can convince you today to give them a try. First off, we have spinnerbaits. If you know me, you know I love spinnerbaits. Typically, that's what I'm slaying my bass, muskie, pike. I'm using those, but I'll also throw them on for common sunfishes. Really, what makes a spinnerbait is just that blade that spins in the water. With spinnerbaits, you get plenty of flash, and that's the light reflecting off of the blades, and you get plenty of thump, and those are the pressure waves generated by the moving blades and the entire lure that get picked up by the fish's mechanoreception system, and the lateral line is a big component of that. And spinnerbaits are great because you can play them pretty much to any depth. Slower retrievals keep you at a deeper depth. Safety pin spinnerbaits are great, and I found some types that work well and some that don't. The Strike King Micro and even the larger Strike King Mini are safety pin spinnerbaits that I will use in dense cover when treble hooks just can't be pulled through. But these 2 lure types I can't recommend for common sunfishes. And why? Well, the hooks are just too big. That Mini King has about the same size hook as a 2-aught Gamakatsu Octo, and that's just giant for common sunfishes. And the smallest 1/16 ounce Micro King, that still has a 1 or maybe even a 1-aught hook on it. So the amount of missed hits you'll get using those 2 if you're targeting common sunfishes will give you a headache. But the Strike King Micro and Mini, these are great baits that I love using for other species like big crappie, pickerels, and even basses. So the safety pin spinnerbait that I will recommend, and one that I've just found to work great for common sunfishes, is the Beetle Spin. This is a classic. This is quite effective and easy to get hook sets with. The hook is very similar to the size 8 of Owner's mosquito hook, and that small targetable profile and play of the soft plastic makes the lepimid hit more accurately with the Beetle Spin. It's essentially remained unchanged since Johnson bought Bass Buster, and there are still the variants of the soft plastics available, like the tails. It's just a nice lure to have. And I have to toss an honorable mention to Charlie Brewer's Charlie Bee. This is technically a spinnerbait, but it's also more like just a weighted jig head with a soft plastic, and we already covered those. But this is a fun lure for common sunfishes. I just don't see them in stores as often as I used to. But small Rooster Tails are a go-to lure for me in creeks and rivers, and I'll even toss them on in ponds and sometimes lakes. I usually buy the originals, but there are so many Rooster Tail-like inline spinnerbaits. You just gotta find a brand that you like. Really, any multi-species angler should have at least one inline spinnerbait in their box. Our second lure type for common sunfishes is crankbaits, and I found that lepimids will hit just about any crankbait no matter the size, and they'll even hit large topwater baits. But big baits with big hooks really lessen your chances of properly hooking a common sunfish. For common sunfishes, I prefer smaller baits, or just baits that are more practical. They're going to have a higher percentage when the common sunfish hits them, so that hook can get into the mouth, hooked around the lip. And even record-setting lepimids will hit small crankbaits. So my first favorite crankbait is the Rapala Mini Fat Rap. It's big enough to where it really targets those large 8-inch plus bluegill, red ear, long ear, etc. And it requires a fast retrieval to get that wiggle. This is a great bait for shallow water situations, like if you can find weedless lanes and ponds. The Mini Fat Rap just doesn't go deep at all. Maybe a half foot under the surface at most. That's why I always keep the Rapala 1-inch countdown in my box. This lure is pretty sweet at targeting the right depth because it has that slow sink. So for offshore lake fishing, this is a better option so you can get to those deeper depths. Whereas I like the Fat Rap, the Mini Fat Rap there for running that along shorelines and lanes within shallow waters. And I'm going to throw an honorable mention to the Yo-Zuri 3DS Minnow lure here. So this lure was introduced to me by an angler and former shark fishing guide in North Carolina, Matthew Anderson. He watched some of the videos and likes KNFS, and so he was just telling me some cool stuff. And he says this lure and the Rebel Raider are two of his go-to crankbaits for multi-species fishing. And he's gotten some of his biggest panfish on him. And he even admitted to me that people give him a weird look when he says he uses these big baits to target big common sunfishes. But he sent me plenty of photos with his results. You can also see Matthew making some cameos on the Exploration Adventures fishing channel here on YouTube. I'll just give him a quick link below. They do cool North Carolina fishing multi-species stuff. But I did thoroughly test the 3DS Minnow on multiple bodies of water in multiple states. I used the 2 3/4 inch version as well as the 4-inch version on a few different color types. This is a suspending hard bait that also plays great as a twitch bait. It's great because it goes to a nice depth. The 2 3/4 inch only goes about 2.5 feet, whereas I felt the 4-inch version was definitely going deeper, maybe almost 5 feet, maybe 6, on a fast retrieval, and I really like that depth. But I gotta say, I didn't catch any lepimids using the 2 3/4 inch version, but I was slaying bass and other species with both sizes. It's essentially like Rapala's Shadow Wrap, a lure I love using, but this Yo-Zuri 3DS Minnow has definitely earned a spot in my tackle box. But Yo-Zuri has another little gem that is just a blast to use for common sunfishes, the Snap Bean. This crankbait can be straight retrieved, but I like doing twitch retrievals with it as well. And this lure was introduced to me years ago by Jimbo, probably the best natural instinct angler I've ever met. And he's got a bluegill on a Snap Bean right there. And Jimbo's the one in our KNFS bumper there, catching the 4-foot muskie. So it's definitely worth using the Snap Bean in shallow water situations or near cover. Just a good little bait. Finally, the last lure type I love using for common sunfishes. Spoons. So spoons are a great choice because they have plenty of flash, a great wiggle action, and you can play them to any depth. And they typically have a great weight, so you can cast them far on light line. So first we just gotta mention little daredevils, like the Skeeter. A straight retrieval works well with this lure, but you can play it so many ways. Yo-yoing, twitching, trolling, drifting, whatever you want. I've made sure to always have a little daredevil in my box for decades now. But the best lure, in my opinion, that I'll share with you today for common sunfishes, and the one that I highly recommend that you get in your box, is the good old Kastmaster by Acme Tackle. I've used Kastmasters of various sizes and types over the decades to land various species, but for common sunfishes, I recommend you get yourself a 1 12 ounce at the original or the plain mode, and I've also had great success with the rattle versions. A gold or silver sheen is great, but I also like ones that have the half blue on them. It's such a dense little lure that you get that nice casting distance. You cast it, you troll it, you twitch it, you vertically play it. The versatility of this lure is what I love. So if I was told I could only bring one crankbait or one spinnerbait or one spoon to a water source for common sunfishes, it would be a little Kastmaster. And my only complaint with the Kastmaster is if you're targeting common sunfishes, you're going to get a bunch of other fishes as well, like bass. And that's a good bad complaint. So that 1 12 ounce can land you big specimens of the larger to medium sized species of common sunfishes. The smaller 1 24 ounce is harder to find in the stores, but you can find it online. But that'll work better for some of the smaller species, like nabbing big orange spotted or northern sunfishes. Kastmasters are just handy to have for both fresh and saltwater fishing. I've been nabbing plenty of specimens here in Massachusetts, on the ocean here. I mean, with these cunners, it was just a yo-yoing off of a pier, and these Atlantic bonito, it was just a hard, fast retrieval, and they were just ramming it, so it was fun. So I've tried a lot of lures over the years, but I have not tried them all. So if you have any great spoons, crankbaits, or spinnerbaits for common sunfishes that you want to share with us, other KNFSers, please do that below in the comments. We'd love to hear it. I'll get the last two methods for common sunfishes done here, hopefully soon enough. I've been busy with stuff. I'm going to go kayak fishing in the ocean right now. And I will be sharing my most absolute favorite lure for common sunfishes, and I will give you a clue. It's a wet fly, and it's already appeared here on KNFS. Fish responsibly and good luck.